Welcome back to Masters on the Move. Today's guest is Christian Reynolds, an inspiring endurance cyclist who rode the length of New Zealand from Cape Reinga to Bluff, all while managing diabetes. We'll dive into how he got into long-distance cycling, how his diagnosis shaped his approach to sport, the highs and the lows of the north to south journey, and the mindset that keeps him pushing big goals. If you're into endurance cycling or health and resilience, this episode is packed with practical insight and motivation. Let's get into it. Christian, a warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about your background, where you grew up and how you first got into cycling?
Sure. I'm a Northlander through and through, born and bred here in Northland Whangarei. I was an 80s kid. I was born in 78, so I grew up in the 80s. And life was just activity. It was out. Football was a mainstay in my life, I guess, from a young age, but always outside, skateboarding and playing cricket and tennis and making huts in the bush and mudslides, bare feet. This was back in the days, I think, when you used to put your milk counters, so essentially tokens, at the end of your driveway, and the milkman would come and take your tokens and leave your bottle of milk at the bottom of the drive, and it would still be there, no dramas. It was a safe place to hang. And so me and my mates, life was just doing stuff outside, and a big part of that was bikes, always on bikes. My dad got me into BMX when I was, I think, about 6 or something. I remember going along to the Whangarei BMX track. It's the old one now. It's been tar sealed. That would have been about 1984, I guess. And I got into BMX racing as a kid and loved BMX riding. That was about 6 or 7 years of my life, and ended up stopping BMX because I made the Northland reps for football at age about 10 or 11 or something. And a lot of those were Sundays, which is when racing was. So I gave up BMX for football around that time. But I always had an attraction to bikes, always loved bikes through university. And then when we lived in London, my wife and I, Barbie, you'll hear more about her shortly, probably, hopefully. We moved to London. I did a lot of commuting in London in Wimbledon and through Richmond Park. If you know Richmond Park in those areas, just stunning. So to work and back a lot in London. And then at Paroa Bay School, I rode, I commuted a lot of times through when I was working at Paroa Bay School from here in Onarahi, probably 4 or 5, perhaps 2 or 3 times a week. So I was always had that biking kind of thing in my life, I guess. So growing up, I was definitely ADHD. I didn't know that at the time. I was just a naughty boy, and I was a naughty boy. I was naughty, and but now I think we kind of have a better understanding of where that comes from with ADHD, and that's been a superpower in my life.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of a bit of a background, I guess, how I got into cycling and the enduro side of things.
When did you first become passionate about endurance events and long distance cycling?
Oh man, look, I'm very competitive. I've played over the years. I've played a huge different number of sports, and whatever I play, whatever I'm doing, it's part of that ADHD. I think is very hyper focused on things, and so it's all or nothing. And so whatever I'm doing, whether it's football, and it has been football for years, whether it's squash or whatever it might be, I always want to be physically as good as I can. I see the advantage that athleticism can have in any kind of sport. And the other thing I guess to know about me is I get bored easily. I'll do something for a while and I'm going, okay, tick, what's next? I'm always looking for a new challenge, I guess. And anyway, it was actually 2001. I was teaching at Accelerate College, and I was just kind of thinking about a challenge. I was like, I feel like I want to do something big, something interesting, maybe a part of the start of my midlife crisis, maybe. And I saw this Tour Aotearoa race. I was just researching online and saw this. It's like, oh, this looks cool. It's 3,000 Ks from Cape Reinga to Bluff. So this sounds good. So I went home literally that night and talked to my wife. I was like, babe, look at this. It sounds cool. And my 3 kids, they were there, Madison and Nico and Zand. And my wife just that night was like, yeah, you should do it. Book it. Do it. I was like, "You sure? Yeah." So I booked it there, and then we paid. It was like $150 or something entry, and I was committed, and it just kind of went from there. And the passion for bike packing, bike adventuring has really grown and flourished from that decision on. Really, man.
That's fantastic. Super story. How
Mm.
did being diagnosed with diabetes impact your approach to sport and everyday life?
That that's an interesting story. That's an interesting story. And so, having had these questions the other day, Justin, I've been doing a lot of. I'm not a particularly reflective person. I'm very much task orientated. I'm a task orientated person, and it's a matter of what's next. So to look back and really be reflective on this whole journey has been really insightful for me. It's been wonderful. So thank you. I probably wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Right.
So diabetes, I was diagnosed at 33 with type 1 diabetes. So that's an autoimmune deficiency, some badass cells in your pancreas eat the good cells, and your pancreas stops working. Your pancreas is where your insulin is produced, which converts raw sugars in your food to glucose or glucogen, I think it is, which is what your body uses for energy. It's the petrol that we use. I was 33 when I was diagnosed. I had seen, it's interesting because I'd seen my dad had type 1 diabetes. He had it all his life. Obviously, the control and the technology and the knowledge that we have around it back then was very limited compared to now. So I remember seeing my dad suffer from diabetes. From a young age, he lost a lot of his eyesight. He was a motorcycle mechanic, mad motorbike, loved riding bikes as well. Interesting. Motorbikes. He did ride push bikes as well, but he lost his license early on. He missed out on incredible jobs that he should have had, and I saw how it affected his life. And I don't think I appreciated it as a kid until now. Looking back, you can see, right, with that experience and wisdom. And I also saw my father die of diabetes. Or diabetes-related complications. Yeah, it was a beautiful time. It was tough, and but a beautiful time with family. And around that time, had been suffering from these crazy stomach inflammations, and it would just flare up, and it got to a point sometimes where it was like someone was grabbing my intestine and just twisting. I'd be doubled over, and it was very, very painful. Long story short, I was in hospital for a 2-week stint. And one morning, a nurse came in and said, "Oh, these intravenous steroids that we've got you on can tend to push your blood glucose up a bit. We're just going to do a random blood test just to check how this goes. How are you going?" I was like, "Okay, sweet, cool." And my blood glucose levels at the time was about 34 millimoles per liter. So normal for a non-diabetic is about 6. You hover at about 6. For me, I hover between about 6 and 10, 12 now at the moment. So 34 was through the roof. They were like, "Are you feeling all right? Have you got a dry mouth or anything?" I was like, "Actually, no, I feel really fine. Bit of a sore stomach." But anyway, and so I was diagnosed there with type 1 diabetes. And that time when I was in hospital, I was given insulin by the nurses in their wisdom and in their, they were amazing. "This is your insulin. This is what you have to have, in the mornings. There's a long-acting insulin. This is the insulin that you have before meals, and you have to balance out the carbohydrates with the insulin that you have, et cetera, et cetera." And so I went away and I did that for a year. And if you were to look at my blood glucose graphs, they were just up and down like crazy, mostly down, and I'd have big hypos. It was turbulent. After about a year, it was almost literally, wasn't quite this simple, but I remember waking up one morning thinking, literally, I'm not going to use insulin. I'm just going to control this with diet and exercise, good health. And so that's kind of what I did. And I guess essentially my diet changed dramatically, radically, to a low carb, high protein diet, essentially. I was always exercising, I was always keeping fit, but that became a more consistent thing for me.
Right.
And ironically, I have very few stomach issues now. That stomach issue is virtually non-existent now because of the change in diet. Previous to that, I thought my body was fueled on mass amount of carbs, a good meal would be a big family pack of pasta with a couple of pieces of bread, maybe a bit of tuna pudding. Whereas now it would look more like a big helping of protein and a big healthy salad and maybe a potato or something, you know. So that really had a massive impact on my life.
So you're controlling your diabetes now totally just on diet and exercise? Are you off insulin?
So I use at night I use it's called gosh, what's the name of it? It's the slow acting. I should know. It's the slow acting insulin, and it kind of keeps a bit of a lid on the blood glucose over a 24-hour period. I'm still using that at the moment, and the amount that I use varies depending on how much exercise or what I'm doing, or if I'm sick, or there's lots of factors that influence that. But I don't use any Nova Rapid, no insulin before meals. Yeah.
All right. So are you monitoring this on a daily basis, your levels?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we now, type 1 diabetics now have these bad boys. They are fully funded, and they're a blood glucose sensor. They send my levels directly to my phone, so I get a constant readout of where I'm at, where I'm tracking, whether I'm climbing or stable or diving. They're a huge game changer.
All right.
Massive.
So it really affects your everyday life in quite a big way. You're constantly monitoring, you're constantly aware of diet, and then balancing that exercise obviously helps and keeps your mind as well in a good space.
Yeah, very much so. I think, you know what, Just I don't think about it too much. So as I said, I've got on some notes. I made a decision really early on that I was going to control diabetes, or do whatever I have in my power that I can control over diabetes. I would control diabetes and not allow diabetes to control me. So that's kind of the mantra, I guess, the philosophy I've taken with me on this journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Good on you. So let's go back to this Cape Reinga to Bluff. Let's go back to that point, almost a turning point where you made that decision to take this on, which was quite a quick decision.
Yep.
Had you realized what it was going to take when you made that decision, the planning maybe, and all that kind of stuff behind it?
No, I don't think so. I probably didn't understand the full implications of what it was going to be, and nor did my wife, fortunately. Otherwise, she probably would have said no. I'm also so going back to ADHD. I'm very, so hyper focused on things. I love detail. So when I make a decision like this, when I'm excited about something, when I'm passionate about something, I'm all in. And so it was a bit of a journey of self discovery. I kind of knew the idea was 3,000 Ks and you had to do it within 30 days, is the idea. But I don't think I really had a full understanding of what that meant in the planning and organization, the cost, the sacrifice, a lot of sacrifice of time from family and whatnot, training.
What inspired you?
Probably maybe a little bit of pride. Like, I can do this. It's going to be awesome. I think it was a sign of I'm a very stubborn person. I can be very pig-headed. So maybe it was a bit of a sorry, can I do that to diabetes? Like, I'm gonna do this. Just sounded like a fun thing to do.
So let's just talk about how you prepared for it. What did you have to do in getting ready? How much time did you have to prepare?
I think we registered for it. I think it was about July 2021. So just over after COVID. The planning, the preparation was really like I didn't have a really set schedule of what I did. It was just building hours on the bike and building up Ks leading into the event, which was we left on the 25th of February, 2022. So August, September, October, November, December, January, February. Had about 8 months of planning and prep. So slowly building up the Ks over time. I used a bit of an overload principle where I overloaded my bike. So one of the key decisions I made early was that I wanted to be really light and completely self-sufficient. I wanted to be able to pull over on the side of the road anywhere at any time, have some food, sleep the night if I needed, um, and just that kind of do it that way, not be tied down to having to be any particular place at any particular time. So spent hours and hours researching equipment and buying, I had to buy some gear, some tents and a tent, a mattress and sleeping bags and some cooking gear. And so I loved that side of things, was wonderful. And then I guess as we got closer to the event, around so that summer of 2021-22, I did about 3 or 4 day rides where I clocked up, I think, like between 300, 400 Ks over a few days. And so that was just a good opportunity to go back to back days and test equipment and setups and where stuff went on my bike and everything. And just to know mentally, physically, I was capable of doing this.
Right. So what was your goal? Did you have a distance in mind every day?
Well, I knew my goal was to do it within 25 days. So there was an average of 120K a day. I knew if I averaged that, then I'd hit my goal. So that was kind of always in the back of my mind. I didn't have really a goal. I'd kind of just start riding in the morning, and just see how I felt and where the day took me. And as the evening kind of drew on, I'd start making some plans of where I wanted to be that night. There were a couple of days where I had really set plans, particularly later on in the ride where I knew my body. I knew I had the fitness, the headspace, and where I could go, this is my goal today. I want to get here. And so I did that. But most of the time it was just to start riding my bike one pedal at a time and to see how I go.
And so you were traveling on your own?
Most of the time on my own. It was the TA Tour Aotearoa it's a brevet ride. So there was a group of, I think about maybe 150 other riders that left at the same time as me. And there was another 150 or so that left the following day after me. And so the majority of the time was riding on my own, but there was a lot of time as well. As you go along, you start to get in a bit of a rhythm and a pace with other people. And so there were times definitely where I rode with others for a day or half a day or whatever it might be. You kind of go your own way, or they'd stop and have some food and I'd carry on, or vice versa, and you'd meet up a couple of days later. So yeah, there was some incredibly gifted, very gifted, well-trained cyclists on that brevet. They'd ask me, like, because that conversation would come about, like, the question would come up, what's your pedigree? What's your cycling pedigree, Christian? It was like, it's more mongrel. It's probably more mongrel than pedigree. A bit of this and a bit of that. So that was awesome.
So give us a bit of an idea of the route. What type of roads were you traveling on? You were staying away from main routes?
Yeah, staying away from main roads. A lot of them was, so the first day, for example, we started at Cape Reinga. We rode State Highway 1 onto Tapaki Stream, which is up in the north, and then onto 90 Mile Beach. We rode 90 Mile Beach into Ahipara, and then kind of went from there. From there, we sort of through Auckland, Central North Island, some incredible rides through there, a lot of bike trails and gravel roads. There were very few times where we on any kind of main roads or main routes. Potentially, majority of it was B roads and gravel roads, cycle trails, through the west coast of the South Island, which was incredible. The West Coast Wilderness Trail, and then we kind of cut in through Wanaka, Queenstown. You get the Onslow boat across Lake Wakatipu, and then carry on from there through to Invercargill. So that's kind of that's the route.
Beautiful route,
and
amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
And there's a lot of excellent cycle paths. I'm just thinking of going through Auckland. There's shared pathways and stuff like that where you avoid. Obviously, you can't go over Harbour Bridge, etc. So through a lot of towns, there are those various cycle routes too, aren't there?
There is, yes, yeah, absolutely. Through Auckland, I don't even know where I went. I'm very navigationally challenged, the ride was 3,000 Ks. I think I probably did close to 3,300. Wrong turn. I just kind of, anyway, but yes, look, if you put your mind to it, that's the wonderful thing about the TA is all that thinking, that route, that planning's been done for you.
Right.
You just kind of follow the instructions as closely as you can without taking wrong turns, and you get there in the end.
Was there anything in particular that you had to think about in terms of your equipment, your bike, for instance, tires? Obviously had to take a whole lot of spare tubes or tires with you just in
Yep.
case.
Yes,
Did you have any incidents?
I had a couple of minor ones. Probably the main one, I did have quite a major mechanical issue at one stage where just south of Nelson, and I'd ridden that day. I'd done about 80 or 90 Ks, I think, and then my rear derailleur cable had snapped just from use. I didn't replace it before we started the ride. I should have. Ended up having to ride partway back, and then I got a ride with a guy, a truck driver. Actually, I strapped my bike to the back of his truck, and he took me back to a place called Richmond, just south of Nelson, and amazing bike store there. They got me sorted like within an hour. They did an emergency fix up on the bike, and I ended up having to ride the rest that 50k back to where I was. And that side of it was actually that was all right. I was okay with that. But I stayed the night. I can't remember the name of the place. Stayed the night. But it was the next day that was the one day I really struggled mentally, because all I could think of, I couldn't get out of my head that I should have already done this yesterday. Like, I should have done this. Why am I here still? And I just got myself in this really negative headspace. And I got to Murchison. It was a little place there. It was about 2:00 in the day. And I was really mentally just so low, really flat. And I rang my wife, Barbie, looking for a bit of sympathy and this baby. And I rang her after and I was like, babe, I'm not feeling this. I think I might just stop the night here. This was 2:00 in the day. Might just stay here the night and I'll get back on it tomorrow. And if you know my wife, her response was, Christian Reynolds, you have a flippin' business to run and a family to get back to. You get back on that bike and ride. Okay. And so I did, and I think I met up with 3 other guys, a couple of young sons and a dad, and I think we did about 125 Ks that afternoon or something. Like,
Wow.
it was one of the best days,
Yeah.
and almost left my front wheel behind on the first.
Oh.
I had to get a bus from Whangarei to the Kaitaia was the plan, the 2 days before the tour started. So I had my box. I had my bike boxed up. I went and took it to a guy, Brent Love, at Missing Link Cycles, and he helped me get it boxed up. I was on the bus, all good. I was on the bus going to, heading up to Kaitaia and just drifting off to sleep, all excited. And I literally just worked like this. Did I put my front wheel in the box? Long story short, I hadn't. I'd left my front wheel in the store. Fortunately, there was a sales rep that was coming up to Kirikiri. So I got off the bus at Kirikiri, waited there, and there was a sales rep who was in Brett Love's store, Missing Link Cycles, at that very time, and he brought my front wheel up to Kirikiri. So I ended up having to ride from Kirikiri up to Cape Reinga. So I had a bit more distance that next day to get there for the start, but I got there.
Gosh, starting off with challenges like that, it's awesome that you didn't give up. You persisted.
Yeah.
Were there any other unexpected challenges? How was the weather?
Weather was amazing. I had literally one day where there's this tiniest little drizzle. I got my waterproof coat out, this little thin jacket, and put that on. And literally, by the time I put it on, I took it off again. And I had one torrential downpour going over the saddle down to Fox, towards Fox, with Fox Glacier on the west coast. It was like torrential for about an hour riding that, which was wonderful. Riding in the rain is just awesome. And when you know that you can get dry and warm at the other side, probably if you're sleeping in a tent in a sleeping bag in the middle of nowhere, being wet and cold, not so fun. But I had that. I knew where I was staying that following night. I had access to a shower and to get warm.
Right.
Yeah, but probably the biggest challenge I had there was quite ironic with talking about the sensor I'd bought 2 of these. They were $150 a pop back then before they were funded, and they last 2 weeks. So they're not a cheap bit of kit, but they're a game changer. But one particular day I was riding, it was through the Waikato region. I was riding to Matamata, where Hobbiton is, some of you will know. And that day, on my phone, it kept saying I was really low, like hyperglycemic, dropping down 3.8. At one stage, it was saying it couldn't register a score because it was too low. And I felt okay, but I started to get quite confused and, geez, what's going on? And I was eating muesli bars, lots of muesli bars on that trip. I would have eaten over 125 muesli bars in 25 days.
Right.
They were a staple. And just wouldn't go up. And I was getting really exasperated and confused. And I got to Matamata about 3:00 that afternoon, and I wanted to keep riding. And I was drinking Coke there, and I had some chocolate, nothing. I ended up going to a doctor's surgery and thinking, right, because I didn't have a pricker. You can prick your blood and do it on the strips like old school. I didn't have that with me. I didn't take it because I was all about the weight. Every gram counted. And so I went to this doctor's surgery and asked at the reception if there was someone that could come and just check my blood, because I was like, couldn't figure out what was going on. And the lady was like, yep, just take a seat. And I waited for about half an hour. It was quite a while. And this lady came out, this nurse, bless her heart, and she looks at me and she goes, it was so maybe she was having a bad day. I don't know. She goes, haven't you got your jelly beans on you? Like this kind of tone. And I was like, oh, no. And I explained to her what was going on, and could you just check this? And she wasn't very patient with me. And just as she was about to do this check, I was getting really exasperated and just wound up. She's just about to do it, and she says, if we have to treat you, it's going to cost you $75, don't you? And at that point, I lost it a bit, and I think I swore at her, and walked out. And about 200 meters down the road, I came to an ambulance service place. The ambulance had literally just pulled in the driveway. I asked the driver, I was like, hey man, can you check this? He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. He checks it, and my blood glucose was like 27. Through the roof. I mean, so this had held. What I think had happened is that because I'd lost all that body fat from here, this needs to be in fatty tissue. I think it had gone into a muscle perhaps, and it just wasn't reading correctly.
Right.
So from there, I just went blind. I had no way of calculating or seeing what my blood glucose was doing for the rest of that ride, which the majority of it, I just went by feel, and that just managed to still get through it.
Wow, that would have been really challenging.
Yeah.
Are there any highlights that you can recall, memorable moments that you'd like to share with us?
Oh my gosh, so many. Living in God's creation, that has to be number one, man. We live in an incredible country, right?
Yes.
The Bible says that the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the goodness of God, and just cycling and being part of that. There's something about being on a bike, right? And just moving a little bit slower through the countryside. We live in perhaps the most beautiful place on earth.
We sure do.
Oh my gosh. The Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God. We can see, you look out and you can see God's majesty. You can see his creation. So being in that sense of solitude and nothing to do but that thought time and prayer time on a bike for hours on end was just wonderful. Lonely at times and hard, but in that suffering, there's beauty. Yeah. So that's got to be one of the key ones for me. But I've also written down that feeling of fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a journey. When I got to Taumata Nui, which would have been, I don't know, day 10, something like that, middle of the North Island, just after the timber trail. We'd finished the timber trail. I came to Taumata Nui. I remember that night I was absolutely exhausted. And I booked a cabin that night. It was one of the few times. And I booked a cabin at Taumata Nui, Motor Lodge or whatever it was. My head must have hit the pillow at about 8 o'clock that night. I don't really remember. And I woke up the next morning, 9 o'clock, my wife ringing me. It was like this 13-hour unbroken sleep, and I'm a really light sleeper, so that was unreal. But I remember from that point on, that was like a lease of life, and I just got fitter and fitter and stronger and stronger. So that was amazing. The second to last day was my biggest day. I rode from Wanaka to it was about 30k north of Invercargill, and I think that day was about 247 kilometers.
Wow.
That was my biggest day. And I could have kept going. It just got dark, and I just felt so strong that day. It was amazing. Yeah. A couple of highlights. And the other thing for me is hills, conquering hills.
Yes.
Conquering hills. It's a bit of a metaphor for life, I think. But
Yeah.
there were some big ones. I don't remember the name of many of them because there was so many of them. But Haast Pass down the South Island was a memorable one. And of course, the Crown Range from Wanaka was amazing. But there was some very technical, rocky climbs where a lot of times just off the saddle, just pushing your bike, and that for me was that was wonderful. Yeah, I've got a thing with hills. It's always been, I don't know. Whenever I've been training hard, I used to do a lot of hill sprints when I was younger, training hard for football and whatnot. I used to love hill sprints and high intensity kind of interval training. Spent a lot of time doing that. So that was, hills were good.
When you mentioned about going down the west coast past the glaciers there, I thought immediately, whoa, hilly route.
Yeah, there's some hills. Yeah, wonderful.
How did it feel getting to Bluff and realizing you'd made it, you'd done it, you'd accomplished your mission? What did that feel like?
Initially, amazing. Yeah, wonderful. Of course, very proud, relief to have done it. A lot of planning and a lot of preparation and sacrifice and all that stuff. I had to take a term off teaching at school, off work. We'd taken a mortgage holiday for that term to be able to do that as well. So that is certainly one of the key things. It doesn't take a lot to, one crash or injury, whatever it might be. A lot of guys finish early because of saddle sores. It's the number one reason people don't finish. Just their bum gets raw from the rubbing on the seat. So that was a key part of the training and the preparation for me, actually, going back to that previous question, was around managing that. Brooks saddles, people, if you want to know, a leather Brooks saddle is the bee's knees. You'll never get a sore bum again. So the relief of just finishing was amazing. But then I think, like with any big thing that we planned for and we spent so much time, and there's definitely that come down afterwards as well. Normal life resumes and we get back on with the day-to-day grind, and so there was that element to it.
Yeah, we always tend to focus just on that one event and getting that finished, and then there's a gaping big hole afterwards, which can be very challenging mentally, and how to manage your feelings after that. How did you do that? Did you have something else to focus on?
Yeah, look, I think with diabetes, having diabetes it's been a challenge in many ways. It's been a real blessing. I know that's going to sound strange to people, but I think God uses all things for the good of those who love Him. I live by that. So when I was diagnosed with diabetes as well, it was a time where I was really starting to encounter Jesus, and I started to develop this wonderful faith. And so that was a real life change. And so it changed the outlook of so many things in my life. I was no longer the same person. I'm no longer the same person. And so to have that diabetes, it's like this constant, it's not a constant, it's a, what's the word I'm trying to find, Justin? Consistency. You just get back on the bike and I've got to keep going. The choice I've made is to manage it with diet and exercise and good lifestyle. You just kind of keep going. And look, I'm not perfect. I'm sounding like I'm the saint and I'm always exercising, I'm training. I'm not, guys. I totally have my shortcomings and I'm lazy and sometimes I can't be bothered, and but there's always that to fall back to. I have an amazing family of 3 kids. I've got my eldest daughter, Madison. She's 21. a real force to be reckoned with. She's like a hurricane of awesomeness. A collector of people. She's wonderful. I've got my Nico is my son. He's 18. He's the brains of the family. He got his dad's brains and his mother's work ethic. He will go a long way in life. And our youngest daughter Zania she's 15, and she's like this wonderful ball of joyous energy. And so an incredible wife. So it was kind of coming back, and you just get back into fatherhood and work and life, and kind of went on. So I didn't have a big slump where I got majorly depressed. Although I suffer with mental health issues. It's another story. Minor mental health, some minor anxiety, I guess, and depression. But I think for all people, maybe that's just the normal climbs and hills of life as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it was just a matter of just getting back into a routine and a structure again, and just keep going, Justin.
Yeah. For people maybe struggling with living with diabetes and trying to stay active, have you got any advice or ideas or tips that have helped you?
Consistency is vital. And I've put in here, embrace the hills. Embrace the hills. It's a mantra of life. Embrace the hills. There's going to be challenges, and I think if people that struggle with diabetes or any other kind of, I guess, physical ailment, by the way, I'm not an expert. You're not allowed to say like, "Hey, that guy Christian on that podcast said I should just go and do this." I'm not saying that. Consult doctors and specialists.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
look, man, my outlook has been that I would control diabetes. I wouldn't let diabetes control me. And so it's one of the things that you can have that control over. And man, we've got to it's about keeping the odds in our favor, right? Like there's so many things we don't have control over. I could, I know this sounds really bleak, but have cancer in a few weeks. I mean, who knows what's around the corner, but what can we manage right now? To help with those goals.
Yeah.
And for me at the moment, it's really about longevity. I'm 47, and it's really the first time, Justin, I think, where I'm starting to look and think, in 30 years' time, hopefully I last that long. I've got a lot to do yet. But 30 years' time, what things do I still want to be able to do then? And so to be
Right.
there then, where do I need to be now? My body, my mindset, my, you know, and so it's like I heard a great analogy a little while ago on another podcast. Actually, it's like a glider. We want to glide in. If this is our landing point over here, the higher we start here, the easier it's going to be to get to that landing point later on. So it's what
Right.
can we do? So taking those little steps, I think, man, whatever that might
Yeah.
look like for you.
I love that analogy. Very good. What have you learned about your body and your mindset through your cycling journey?
I have learned that my body we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are of intricate design made by the master craftsman, Justin. There's an amazing creator out there that created these incredible bodies. Mine's getting a bit worn out. I'm looking forward to an upgrade. It's like, so that's the first thing. I marvel at the human body and its capabilities. As a teacher, it's one of the most important things I try to get across to my children, my students, is just incredibly complex, but yet how simple we are, designed in God's image. So that's the first thing. And I've learned that the Bible talks about the body, soul, and spirit. So it's looking after those three things: the physical body, the mind, the emotions, our thought life, all that kind of thing is so vital. And then the spirit, the bit that connects to God. And that for so long was missing in my life. So to know that connection is so important to me.
Have you ever had setbacks or moments of doubt, and how have you overcome those?
Yep, many. Many. Like I said before, alluded to before, I've had minor mental health struggles in my life. My wife, and to a lesser degree, my kids will testify to that. So yes, there's been huge setbacks. One day at a time, Justin. Just get back on the bike. Sometimes I think we've got to just shift down a couple of gears, lower the cadence, sometimes there's those headwinds that are pushing against, and it's a struggle. And I think I'm learning to be able to slow down and to know that I'll get to exactly where I need to be anyway, at exactly the
Yeah.
right time. So through those challenges, when life gets a little bit tough, just keep grinding, keep going.
Right. Amazing. You've mentioned that you're a teacher. Do you bring lessons from your cycling and health journey into the classroom?
Uh, yes, absolutely. Teaching, yeah, man. Teaching's a profession you bring all of yourself to. You can't hide. It's about relationships, right? You're at the chalk face every day. So I think for me, my teaching style, my philosophy, it's about relationships, and so letting kids know how I'm feeling and talking about my life and what's going on, and in their lives, of course, as well. I think is really important for kids to be able to see that. I share my journey with the tamariki, with my journey with diabetes and cycling and all the challenges and my mental health issues. And I think sharing all of that with kids just helps them to get a better understanding of who I am, that I'm actually not just this teacher that shows up in the classroom and then disappears into a cloud of smoke when I leave. I'm a human being.
Right.
My childhood, I think, is a testimony to them as well. I talk often about my life on Onarahi and just what a blessing that was. We had no devices. Saturday morning cartoons were like the highlight of screen time. We didn't have we didn't have all that. So I think sharing those stories with kids is just so powerful. And yeah.
How do your students or colleagues respond when they hear about your endurance challenges?
I think they're pretty blown away, man. I think most people are like, "Wow, that sounds amazing."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they are, and it is. I don't want to downplay it. It is amazing, but I also see it for what it is, and that it's, if you train for it, if you work towards it, our bodies are and our minds are
Yeah.
capable of so much. So it's not like I'm this incredible guy who's only I can do this. Anybody, if you put your mind to whatever you want to put your mind to, you can achieve it, man. Right? That sounds really cliched and a bit lame, but it's absolutely the truth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. You would know as a runner, mate. Like it's what we put our time and our energies into. That's what we get good at, I guess. It's what we start to learn.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Our bodies are incredible. You push them a little bit and they adapt. You push them a bit
Yes.
more and they adapt more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before you know it, you're doing some amazing things, and yet you've taken it just in small steps, which,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm always in awe of how the body can adapt to the
Mm.
stresses you put on it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you see any parallels between teaching and endurance sport?
Mate, teaching is an endurance sport.
Yeah.
Teaching's an endurance sport, man. Yeah, so much. Like it's just, yeah, it's every day getting in front of that chalk face. Sometimes you just got to put on a game face in teaching. You don't feel like
Yeah.
being there. You don't want to do it. I think there's other professions you're feeling a bit meh. You can, I'll just have a bit of a quieter day. I'll just, fade into the background a little bit, maybe not be so productive. Teaching, you can't do it. You've got to turn up day after day after day, and just be in the chalk face. And sometimes it's literally just putting that game face on, and you leave that classroom, you go home and take it off, go again the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a journey.
My wife would totally agree with you. She's also a teacher.
Yes, a very good
Good
one.
on the teachers.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Christian, do you have any upcoming challenges or dreams you're working toward now?
At the moment, no particular goals. It's really around longevity. I'm trying to actually, at the moment, I'm actually trying to put a bit of muscle on the skinny little frame of mine. Longevity is, the research suggests that strength and muscle mass is a key indicator of long-term health, particularly protecting with falls and that kind of thing. As we get older, they can have a huge impact. So it's really around that. It's just consistency at the moment, but long-term, yes, man, I've loved to do a couple more long enduro rides, some bike packing, maybe the Great Divide, the Northern Divide through Europe. There's some incredible bikepacking races or, brevets that maybe in 10 years, 12 years, it might be a thing for me. So those are sort of goals that are on the horizon. Would love to do.
Yes.
At the moment, it's a day-by-day basis, Justin, just keeping fit,
Right.
keeping strong,
Yep.
keeping healthy, eating well.
How do you define success or fulfillment at this stage of your life?
Um, Success and fulfillment. I don't think too deeply about these things, to be honest. Success and wealth, power, possessions, probably. Joking.
Doesn't sound like you at all, Christian.
Look, I think for me, success is, it's like if I'm operating in my giftings and my passions, and life becomes easy, we start to work in this flow. That's where I start to feel the most successful. Operating in my
Right.
giftings and passions to make a difference, in other people. So that's a real. I think that's a real key for me to define success. Forgiveness is key to that one. Would be another thing I think is really important. I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday, a colleague at a school, about forgiveness. So I had a pickleball run-in actually last week, where long story, but I had a fist swing towards my chin from a very angry man at pickleball, and I managed to duck out of the way, and no harm done, fortunately for him and for me. And I was talking about this forgiveness yesterday to a guy, and it was interesting. He said, I don't think people that deserve that forgiveness, they'll just go and do it to someone else. Man, I've been forgiven so much. Those who are in Christ have been forgiven so much. We are called to forgive others, and we only hold resentment and bitterness and the heaviness if we hold on to that anyway. So forgiveness is key to success, I think, man. And family and friends. Family and friends.
Fabulous.
They're who we can take to heaven. Family and friends, can't take anything else. They're just vital. They're a key element of someone's sense of success. And fulfillment, I think, is being gracious, having gratitude for what we have, being content with what we have, man. And learning to love the hills. Learning to love the hills. There you go.
Learn to love the hills.
Yeah.
Christian, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been an inspiration, and I know that it's going to inspire our listeners. That's today's episode, an incredible look at what it really takes to cycle from Cape Reinga to Bluff while managing diabetes and staying committed to endurance goals. If this episode inspired you, follow Masters on the Move for more stories on performance, longevity, and real athletes pushing their limits. Share this with anyone exploring long-distance cycling or staying active with a health condition. And remember, this is for information purposes only. It's not specific medical advice. If you're suffering from diabetes or any other health condition, please speak to a health professional. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep moving, and remember, it's never too late to chase new goals.